Right. Good. Hey guys, I'm back.
Know you really like it when it's colder, babe. So maybe we can make it snow today. If you feeling low, we'll take it slow today. Maybe we can smoke a O today. I can light a candle, get a bathtub going. Go and pour you a glass of champagne, get you in your bag. Always make you laugh, get you on a flight and even have you coming fast. Baby, I can make it. Laugh, we'll have you.
It's a unique story, and wanted to let everyone know that I'm good. For the people that know me, and for the family members that are watching, friends and family, and new people that come across my stuff, you can see that there's a bit of a jump between the last time I made videos and this time, and that has to do particularly with this new view that you now have of everything else. You know, I got a new camera, pretty well. I got a fresh new mic, and I also have a bit of lighting here. Also, among other things, we will be making a big jump somewhere else. Big stuff are going to be happening, and essentially, you know, I'm moving. It's amazing, you know. It's a great day. It's a great, you know, week, great month, great news every day. So, but let's get into this this topic that I wanted to bring up, because it's really been in my mind, talking to friends and stuff like that, and that has to do with the topic of Andrew Tate. And for the people that don't know who Andrew Tate is a former professional MMA fighter with a show or an appearance on Big Brother, the TV series, along with other influences on social media, with his platform, and necessarily maybe lack of platform, because technically he does not actually have social media. He uses other people's social media as a way to connect with other people, which actually makes it very interesting, because it's probably a little bit more difficult to give him the punishment that he recently acquired, which is the banning of his accounts on all social media, or across social media platforms. The main ones, you know, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, you know, just the big singles. I don't know, big fives. I don't know what the fifth one is. Don't ask me. And so it's kind of, this is something that hasn't really been done before. And by that being, not that people have not been banned across these platforms, for perpetuity, but generally has to do with the fact that he's been banned because of certain things that are said on accounts and on platforms not associated with the platforms he's been banned on. So if he was banned on YouTube, let's say, for saying certain views and espousing certain words and sentences, he was also banned on, let's say, Twitter, which, as far as I know, has nothing to really do with YouTube. And so that's something that kind of, you know, catches a lot of people's views. Like, this is something that hasn't really happened before. Another famous person would be Trump, and also the solution for Trump, in my opinion, and, you know, maybe not a foolproof solution, but definitely a good solution in general, will come up later at the end of this. But Andrew Tate's banning has to do specifically with two incidents. One was a situation in which he was accused of holding a woman hostage in his house, in which SWAT proceeded to infiltrate and kind of put Andrew Tate under suspicions of being a kidnapper of some sort.
I am not dead!
And so once they got in there and realized that there wasn't a woman or anyone against their hostage, because there was multiple people inside of his house, the SWAT kind of told him that everyone there was a suspect, that they will keep them under surveillance, just in case, as they, you know, come up more with, even if there is evidence, to continue with the case. I don't know why, if there's no one there, you know, there's no point there, but as far as I know, that's what Andrew Tate said on Andrew Tucker. So that's one of the situations. The second situation has to do with a particular video in which it's seen from the point of view of the person, of the abuser in this situation, showing indications and markers of Andrew Tate's house, with being associated with the voice behind the camera, which is Andrew Tate, or seems to be Andrew Tate's voice. Again, I know, as far as I know, you don't see Andrew Tate's face, so I don't know, but it's pretty much implied that that's him. And so, as you can see through the video, the woman is getting hit with a belt, and so that's pretty much damning to Andrew Tate, in which, when it comes to social media's kangaroo court, essentially, you pretty much have to do what you would do in a communistic country. You would have to prove your innocence, and if you can prove your innocence, you're innocent. If you don't, you are essentially guilty by generally social media on the progressive side. I mean, obviously you have, the progressive and the conservative sides, and they're their own kangaroo courts for whatever that you want to think of. Whatever's on the right is on the left, whatever's on the left is on the right, stuff like that. So pretty much the left and the progressive, among feminist sentiments, have kind of basically placed Andrew Tate as the head of misogynistic sentiments and espouses and views, essentially associating him with the figurehead of everything like that. He's the top model, top head of that type of stuff, which is usually associated with the red pill community, which is just generally men that are associated with the truth. If anyone knows about the Matrix, the blue pill and the red pill situation with Morpheus gives Neo, that's essentially what the red pill community is. It's taking it and waking up to the reality. It turned from something that had a general sense of truth to more of a solitude island for men that are looking for guidance, and generally is sometimes filled with resentment towards women. In some cases, not all cases, but in noticeable amount of cases, it's generally some type of resentment. Just as, some cases in feminist movement, there's a resentment towards men. Like, it's obviously, generally there could be some type of resentment and malice against other communities if you're in a tribe. And I call them tribes because that's what it essentially is. You protect the people in your tribe. So, with that being said, and all that all together, that's pretty much generally what social media and, to some degree, progressives have kind of hinted at when it comes to Andrew Tate, and why they don't necessarily like Andrew Tate. One of the more noticeable ones, and the ones you probably heard on the news, is essentially the situation in which his views and his traditional opinions have kind of leaked into the education scene, in which some young boys are espousing views like women are, workers of a suit. Young girls are workers of a suit, and so the teachers have pretty much looked at that and was like, this is something that kids should not be listening to. They shouldn't be listening to this dude speak about and demeaning women and thinking that they're so on and so forth. And I 100% agree with that. That is despicable. I don't think that kids should really be listening to this guy at all. Now, when it comes to young men, that's a different story. Woo! That's a different story. That is the young men that choose to listen to him. Obviously, they don't have their entire life in their hands, per se, and their views are shaped by what their families and their communities are like. And so the people, young men that follow him, listen to him because there's a hint of truth to what he says, as with everyone. And so I think that that's kind of the situation here, is that it's really meant for the young men, but it's also capturing other age groups, along with, specifically in this situation, the children. While I do agree with the left and the progressive individuals and community in which they say that, you should just not, you shouldn't have that in the education system. I also think that you shouldn't have trans education and stuff like that, and pronouns and progressive stuff like that in the education system, and in schools in general. You shouldn't have that. School should be education, should be academics, learning how to read and write, learning math, learning about history. Now, if it's modern history, let's say it's a class of, then I can, let's say I can understand up to a certain point. I think it's movements that should be paid attention to, but at the same time, it shouldn't go too far into those movements. It should just capture the idea of those things and go on with the general topic. Now, if the children, the let's say high schoolers that are learning this want to go to college and learn more about it, that's perfect. That's their thing. I don't know what you do after that when you get a degree in that, but it's something for them. But hint in the generals, just get the general idea, encapsulate it, in the proper points, and then give it to kids, into high schoolers, so that they can pass whatever tests and be up to date on modern things and past historical events and stuff like that, relevant to what education has to teach them. I'm not an educator, I'm not a teacher, but I do have some hope for the education system, even though I don't think it's necessarily doing a very good job, and I believe a lot of people hold that sentiment. Now, with that being said, the punishment itself, I don't necessarily agree with banning him across all social media. I believe that's excessive, and I think that leads to a very dark path if that continues to go on, because it went from Trump, which was banning him on Twitter, to now banning Andrew Tate, which has just expanded the width in which companies can now look at other companies and say, you're banned on mine as well, even though you necessarily didn't kind of breach their community guidelines, because you were never in their community guidelines to begin with. So I think that necessarily this is a dangerous path to go down. Because I say that's a dangerous path, and just to clarify, because if you start going down that path, who essentially do you ban? And is it the mob that technically gets to dictate it? The most people that are the loudest, or the most people that have the most votes and the most people behind them that get to dictate this stuff? Or is it the companies that feel like whoever is putting pressure on them is getting them to choose, or whoever, in whatever sentiment is, I don't know, whoever the CEO is. I'm not saying that governments can put their foot in companies' mouths, because Twitter and Instagram are around the world. You can't have a government do that. But I also think that the companies themselves necessarily have to kind of look at this situation, because it's a delicate situation, and basically say, like, how do we want to handle this? It's not like they have to follow America's sentiment and America's views on freedom of speech, but it's a good template. It's a good template to use and be like, maybe we might want to use that template, or maybe we want to use another template. I don't know, but you got to make it clear, make it very clear, make it how you make these decisions, and when it comes to the people. Maybe not the products. You don't have to be, obviously, hide your products, not necessarily hide your products, but essentially, trade secrets, keep it close to the trade, because obviously that's how you make money, and any smart person wouldn't give out what makes them money without a good reason to. But, when it comes to the people, when it comes to that type of stuff, transparency is not that bad of a thing. Like, showing how you guys progress to those thoughts and those ideas and those conclusions is a good way to build public trust, because generally, like now, a lot of people don't trust institutions, they don't trust companies, they don't trust anything. So there's a lot of nihilistic viewing and a lot of nihilistic feelings in a lot of people, but that's something I want to tackle another day. With Andrew Tate, I think the proper solution has to do with addressing two outcomes. One of them being essentially the situation, which is the fallout and the repercussions for banning him, which only exacerbate the divide between sexes and genders. But this also goes into my second reason, which is his tribe, in which I hinted at earlier. Essentially, his tribe is the people that necessarily listen to him, follow him, look for him for guidance. And so that whole tribe is basically giving him the power to say what he wants, because they need someone to vocalize what they're going through. And they've picked Andrew Tate. Before him, I want to say it's Kevin Samuels. Rest his peace. My condolences to his family. But essentially, he was the figurehead for the Red Pill community. He basically kept it truthful from his point of view. And also some of the statistics that he brought up. Now, the problem with this is that, even though Andrew Tate might have, quote unquote, kind of taken the figurehead of the Red Pill community as like one of their outlets for vocalizing their feelings and how they feel in the present time, in the present social climate, Andrew Tate essentially is, he's a more extreme version of Kevin Samuels, expressing a little bit more aggressive traditional views. But even though his sentiments with those views is essentially just to help young men traverse through the world and have a positive impact, from his point of view, paraphrasing, that's essentially what his idea is of doing this type of stuff. It can be seen that he is harming society and males too, from the progressive standpoint. Along with, as I said earlier, the kids and stuff like that, versus the young men that might seek his advice and stuff like that, because some of the things he says does ring true to some degree and does have hints of truth in it. But a lot of people don't necessarily know how to sift through, to get, the wheat out of the chaff, to separate the two, and to get the actual important pieces. Some individuals just listen to the whole thing and then that's it. Like the whole thing is the truth. And that's not necessarily the way you should really go about that. But my solution to the situation has to do with the debate that could be taking place between Andrew Tate, which traditionally holds traditional values, technically aggressive version of traditional values, versus someone from the other side that holds progressive and new age values that in an elegant and intellectual way be able to vocalize those opinions and those views in a concrete manner, and be able to essentially, and this is if you wanted to take down, not necessarily take down, but to kind of help guide society in a better path, because that's essentially what our goal should be. We should be working together to get humanity to a better path, is essentially have that conversation, make it public, make it available to everyone else, like a actual public debate. Obviously, it's not going to be probably held in an academic setting, but it could be held online, a podcast of some sort, and kind of have them conversate and break down views and kind of get to the other side and be able to come to a conclusion, and to kind of, point out fallings and failings on your stances and your points. Basically, what I'm saying for the progressives that would like to get rid of Andrew Tate properly is take his views, see where there's holes and where there's weak points in, and essentially start questioning them. Bang on those doors until either they break or they reformat into a better version. Something that you guys can both agree on, or something that kind of have more sense to it, and it isn't maybe extreme. But it's essentially showing individuals that do follow him, or fence sitters, I like to call them. I'm a fence sitter. I sit on the fence all the time. To essentially see both points, both views, and basically say, well, while I was listening to him, he was making pretty good statements and opinions. Some of the other things he says within this, this podcast debate that just happened, I don't necessarily agree with anymore, because it seemed flimsy. His standpoint seems flimsy, and you know what? I'm going to go evaluate that. I'm going to go make my own opinion and essentially do research for themselves to essentially come to a proper conclusion for themselves, so that they can strengthen themselves. Andrew Tate also strengthens himself, because Either he gets to be exposed for whatever he's hiding and whatever he doesn't really believe in, or essentially, if he does believe in them, they maybe in a positive point, he looks at them and he looks at himself and he comes to a better point. You know, maybe some traditional views aren't healthy, and maybe he, you know, the progressive, whoever the role model for the progressive side is, can help them get through that and help him get through that. And same goes with the traditional side, with the progressive side. Maybe some traditional views can help progressive sides, because, you know, if you go through two new age type of topics and opinions, it can essentially, you know, get a little too out there. You know, maybe the fishing line gets a little too far and you get pulled into the water. That's essentially what I'm hinting at. But that's pretty much my solution. That also goes with Trump in the previous situation with Biden and Trump. I don't, you know, for that matter, I don't necessarily believe that Biden was the appropriate opponent to Trump. But then again, the government's system of elections and how it's built at this point isn't necessarily as efficient as it could be, and it doesn't allow individuals with proper views and opinions and ethical standpoints, rather than partisanship, and, you know, pointing to the other side and basically saying like he's the enemy, you know, stuff like that. It, you know, we need to update that so that that does not happen. That, you know, these politicians really need to make an effort to show that they're trying to bring America forward, rather than just, you know, A team versus B team situation. And I think if with that situation, you know, replace Biden with whoever was appropriate. I mean, maybe not Biden, Clinton. I'm sorry, Hillary Clinton, with somebody that was essentially more appropriate. I think Trump would never have stood a chance. If you bring someone that can basically make Trump look like a fool by pointing out some of the things that he's really saying is quite inaccurate, not true. Look at the statistics, look at the facts, look at the stuff like that, and like really hammer in, you know, that type of sentiment, because let's be honest, conservatives only care about standpoints. I mean, you know, opinions and feelings too, but they, you know, you like your stances. You like concrete, reliable things, which is statistics, not, you know, minorities, but, you know, statistics. So I think that's essentially the end of this video. It's pretty much all I have to say on the subject. I felt like a lot of people were kind of going against him and attacking him and not really like trying to kind of help a solution, because, you know, anyone could be next. Anyone can be next. If that's the situation, if you're high enough and you have a good social platform and you say something wrong, I mean, essentially it can be pushed to that limit. We now know it can be pushed to that limit. And, you know, obviously it's dangerous because we don't know who holds the gun, who points, and who gets to tell the person to point at these things. But that's about it, you know. And hopefully, like, soon I get to, you know, move into my own apartment. But yeah, you know. Hey, guys, it's Story here. If you could drop a like, subscribe, share, and hit that little bell at the bottom of the little video right there, that'd be greatly appreciated. And I'll see you in the next video.
Harder for my challenger. I'm coming with that energy to pick you up and balance you. Them other niggas weak to me, comparison to caliber. I'm on go like it ain't no pads up in my